The Podcasting Dead is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Make sure to subscribe for more podcasts. And while you're at it, drop us a like. If you want to help support the channel and have access to extra content, secret contest, and more, make sure to search for us on Patreon. Patreon.com/thepodcastingdead.
All right, it's time to get weird on a Wednesday, and I always feel like when I say that, it just could insinuate so many other things. But when we say Weird Wednesday, we mean weird as in we're about to get paranormal up in here. We've been doing, what did we do last week?
Last week we talked about Sasquatch and the pineal gland and interdimensional beings, and it was pretty trippy. And simulation theory even.
Yeah, I guess we're getting back into more paranormal than conspiracy on this Wednesday. Before we begin, my name is Justin.
And my handle is JP.
And if you're new to the channel, thank you so much for checking us out. Stick around. We're going to talk about a very interesting experience back in the 50s that has some really bizarre circumstances around it. But also feel free to check out our Patreon as suggested by the gentleman at the beginning of the video for extra podcast, extra content, and all kinds of fun stuff. But in the meantime, if nothing else, just give us a like and a subscribe. So we're talking about the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter. And JP, you're not familiar with this one bit.
I have no idea what we're getting into, man. I'm curious. I'm intrigued. And when you told me the name of this story, I was like, are you sure that's not like a Southern rock band from 1975? Right. I don't know, but all right, let's dig in, man.
It sounds like a Southern rock band or like a dance. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to the Kelly-Hopkins dance. But anyways, the info that I'm getting for this, I always love to cite our sources, is coming, obviously, one of the sources is Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. And the other one is Quotev.com. Quotev.com is where I found it. So a lot of people do have alien encounters, even celebrities. But, this is still one of the most well-known and well-researched and documented, best documented. I don't know how well it was researched per se. But all right, so this all took place on the night of August the 21st, all the way back in 1955. The Suttons were having a nice evening, and they had a visitor, a man with an awesome name, Billy Ray Taylor.
Oh, man.
Billy Ray Taylor was visiting, and he had left the house for a minute to go use their outhouse since they didn't actually have indoor plumbing, and he spotted this, glowing object, and it seemed to land in this gully not too far away. So he runs back to the house, of course, like, holy crap, and he lets the Suttons know, and, of course, they all thought that he was just pulling a joke, and they said he was known to pull pranks on people. And for the first part of this story, when I heard that part that he, they thought it was one of his normal jokes, I thought, okay, this all could be a joke then. Maybe this is the best prank ever pulled. But as we get into it, you'll kind of see why I dropped that train of thought. But soon enough, the family dog started going crazy outside. So Billy and the head of the household, Lucky, they grabbed two guns. I believe it was a 12 gauge and a 22, and they went out to investigate. But both men stopped when a few feet from the door they spotted this creature that was 3 to 4 feet tall, walking towards them with its hands up as if it was surrendering. They later described the creature as having large eyes, a big, thin mouth, big ears, short, thin legs, and hands that ended in claws. Now, there's not much more American than what happened next. As the creature they acknowledged looked like it was coming up to surrender, they started shooting at it. They missed, and it flipped away and ran back into the woods out of fear. Well, no sooner than they had gotten back into the home, the same being, or another one just like it, was caught peering through the window. They shot at it, and once again they missed, leaving a hole in the screen. When the men ran out to see if they had gotten it, they were startled to find the hand of another one of these creatures reaching down from the roof like it was trying to touch them. Or grab them, but they describe it here as touch them. Once again, they took a shot. I imagine just shooting holes all up in the house. And one thing I didn't mention in the beginning, there were a lot of people in this house. I'll tell you how many there were coming up here in a bit, but there were lots of people in this house. I mean, they just shooting holes all up in it. And the creature jumped off the roof and ran into the woods. Now, here's something interesting, that they reported metallic sounds from the creatures when they took shots at them. Mm-hmm. And they seemed to be unaffected by bullets. So one of them, like the one on the roof, was shot at. They heard metallic sounds, kind of like cans, and then the creature seemed to just take off into the woods. Some reports say that the creatures were reported to float in midair, just like levitating in the air, and that's how they moved, was floating back and forth. But once they were back in the house, these small creatures seemed to start like teasing them. I almost imagine like gremlins or something. Popping up in random windows, and no matter how many bullets they shot, none of them seemed to deter the beings. And if the shots were even hitting them at all, that is, they might not have. But I imagine like with a 12 gauge, it's really, I can't imagine they wouldn't have landed a few shots if they shot that many times. Yeah. One shot, maybe you got scared and pulled the trigger early or what have you. But, as many shots as reported in this incident, especially a lot of them being with a 12-gauge shotgun, and later I'm pretty sure there was a 20-gauge shotgun introduced by a third member of the family. They had to have landed something, unless these really are just the worst shots ever. But after a couple of hours, the Sutton family finally, after holding up in the house, and many shots were taken after this, from what I'm reading. Like, they had many different instances where the kids were upstairs and the kids started screaming because they saw a face in the window. Actually, I think the kids had come running downstairs and been like, there's somebody in the window, and they were all just freaked out. So as the next few hours proceeded, the Suttons and their friend ran around the house essentially shooting holes all over it, but at what they were claiming to be creatures. So they made a break for it, and all got piled into these trucks and went to the local police department and reported the event. And the police kind of didn't take it serious at first. They say that the cop that was there at the station when they all showed up was kind of like,
all these crazy ass Suttons again,
right,
getting into
exactly.
trouble.
And then realized, like, they're not playing. Like, he and other officers reported that if the family were pretending and just made this up, then they deserve some kind of acting awards. They were all very visibly shaken. Yeah. They were all very scared, very freaked out. The police ended up finding no trace of the little green men, but did find a lot of bullet holes in the windows and walls. And it's reported that they did actually find, like, a stain out on the porch that had a weird sheen to it when light hit it. But they say there was really no way to examine it. And keep in mind, this is in 55, so I don't think it's like modern day where they could cotton swab it and send it off to a lab. Yeah. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure DNA scans weren't anything like they are now back in 1955. So it really wasn't anything they could do about it. And the thing is, some of the naysayers, the first thing they'll point to is this just sounds like a bunch of drunk hillbillies started spazzing out. However, they seemed sober.
Yeah.
They didn't smell alcohol on their breath, and none of them seemed to be intoxicated whatsoever. But they definitely seemed frightened. Their neighbors did report hearing the numerous gunshots, and they did seem to think that they saw lights in the sky. So they heard the gunshots, and they thought they saw lights in the sky too, but what they said they thought it was that, because these people had a farm. They thought, they're probably chasing away coyotes or predators, and they just thought the lights it could be from the flashlights, whatever. And isn't that always like the worst fear, that you'll have something happen to you, and while it's happening, somebody witnesses it but just passes it off as something completely normal. Yeah. Help me. But after exhausting all efforts, the police left around 2 a.m., but as soon as they were gone, the creatures reappeared to once again torment the Suttons in their weird little ways. The creatures left by dawn, and while Lucky and Billy went to Indiana for business, the other 5 Suttons were questioned. So there was like 7 of them in this house, at least. And the creatures, they never bother them again. But the thing is that... a lot of people, of course, want to dismiss this as a hoax, but no evidence has ever been found for this to be a hoax. And let's think about it for a second. They never made much, if any, money off of this. In fact, they did not talk about it at first. They didn't want to do interviews. They didn't want to talk to reporters. They became more reclusive after this. They didn't they didn't benefit from this in any way, shape, or form other than clout of having one of the most notorious and speculated on alien encounters in U.S. history. But there just really is nothing pointing to any reason why they would stage this. I mean, number one, they've physically shot holes all up in their house. Yeah. And eventually they left the home out of getting tired of public pressure to talk about it, and also worried that these creatures were going to show back up. Now, what's interesting is reading on Quotev.com, the first time I've heard of this before, and the story I was reading earlier didn't mention the creatures coming back after the police report. Now, that's something new to this website, so I've never heard that until I read it on this website. So now that might not be entirely accurate. That I don't know. But everything else the website reported on matched up to everything I've read prior. I just had never read before that the creatures showed back up after the police left, which seems very convenient for the skeptic, I'm sure. But you got to think, I mean, there were way more people at the home, because it was actually, if I go to the Wikipedia page here, let's see, I can tell you how many police officers actually showed up for this. Because, see, the police's first concern were, oh, damn it, we got two families that had a shootout.
Oh, God.
And you imagine, so they actually had 4 city police, 5 state troopers, 3 deputy sheriffs, and 4 military police from nearby. There was a crap ton of authorities there. So, of course, if these creatures, but it didn't, they were severely outnumbered at this point. But the thing is, the way I've read it, it almost seems like they were just curious little kids playing with, like a kid plays with a caterpillar, you know what I mean?
Of course.
Or an earthworm or something, just kind of poking and prodding, seeing what it was. Comically, you can say these poor aliens, being that their ship was reported to have been, seen by Billy Ray in the sky, and then it crashed. Poor things might have just needed some damn gas. Like, hey, we crash landed on your planet. We might need a little help getting out of here. And then they just started getting fired upon.
I believe they were trying to establish first contact of some sort. And, of course, then they realized they're dealing with primitives that just, greet them with violence.
Right.
So, yeah. And the way you describe it, man, the metallic sounds, the no bodily harm, it seems to me like maybe they were some kind of automated drones, maybe they sent some kind of mechanical avatar.
That was my thought, because it's like they stayed on the ship, and perhaps they sent these, and they didn't report them as looking metallic, but they did have glowing eyes. Now, the most common accepted skeptical theory on this event is that it was the great horned owl.
The great horned owl.
They're big animals. They have big yellow eyes. They are very similar in the description of these creatures. As far as you could definitely look at a great horned owl and at a glance mistake it for something like an extraterrestrial, especially at night. It's peering through your window. But the thing is, the reason why a lot of people debunk the great horned owl theory is A, they're not 3 to 4 feet tall. They don't just hover in place. They're not bulletproof. And certainly most creatures, after a lot of gunshots, would flee the area. I mean, that's one of the perils of hunting, is once you fired your gun, there's pretty much no wildlife anywhere near you now. And it's going to take a while before they start to return. So the great horned owl, though it's kind of an easy thing as a skeptic to throw out and then just say, that's all it was. It's just a bunch of drunk hillbillies saw great horned owls, freaked out, put a bunch of holes in their house, and that was that. But when you consider they were not drunk, that great horned owls at a glance could be matched, but they do not match what they were up against. And they certainly don't make metallic sounds. It starts to fall apart as a theory.
And I'm sure these people are probably hunters. They're probably used to seeing wildlife, dealing with animals. I doubt they would go that freaking crazy over seeing some weird-looking owl.
Right. I mean, an owl is, probably something they're pretty used to hearing. And so, granted, you don't see owls nearly as much as you hear them. I love owls. I think they're awesome creatures. But I mean, the thing is, you've got it's so well documented. You've got so much to look at with this, and So I think they said that basically they were held off with gunfire for around 4 hours. So, I mean, the ordeal lasted for quite a while. And I don't know, man. It really does sound like what you just said. I think that sounds like one of the best. If you're going to go the extraterrestrial route, I mean, of course, there's always a possibility. This whole thing's just made up.
Yeah.
But I just don't get why you make it up and then you don't seek notoriety for it. You don't try to make no money off of it. You don't appear in interviews and on TV. I mean, the people that a lot of times it's believable made some crap up are the people that are all over the news, and then they're on like Ellen or, this talk show and Fox News and CNN and just seem to be milking it for everything they can. Whereas these people didn't even want to talk to anybody about it. And it's interesting because family, friends, and those that knew them, the ones they would talk to about the events through the years, through many years, a lot of times when you make up something, the story unravels or it starts getting just thrown out of whack over time. You know what I'm trying to say? Like basically your story starts falling apart because you made it up and you start kind of forgetting your lies and getting things mixed up. People who talked to this family said everybody, kids and adults, all had the exact same story for the rest of their lives. 20, 30 years down the road, they could tell you the exact same story. Then you could go ask another family member, and they would tell you almost the exact same story.
Yeah, this account sounds pretty credible. I mean, number one, you said not seeking fame and fortune. This is long before the days of methamphetamine or homemade methamphetamine anyway. If this happened in the last 20 years, I'd say, man.
A bunch of crackheads.
Yeah, there's some meth heads out in the country brewing up some crystal and just they've been awake for like a week and getting crazy. But no, it sounds pretty legit. And I know you're just as familiar with the theory as I am that, in the 40s and 50s and 60s, after the first atomic bombs fell, Earth kind of became like a tourist attraction for UFOs.
It definitely seems they were concerned with what we were doing.
So, I mean, it definitely, given the time frame, the period in history and all this stuff, it definitely sounds like one of the more credible accounts we've definitely ran across.
And now, don't get it twisted. They did get a lot of press coverage over the years. But it took a while before they would open up to the press. And it's reported that they made very little to no money. Like a lot of times you and I work in radio, and I don't know that you've had the alien thing yet, but I could probably dig up and show you. One guy came to our studio wanting us to interview him because he had saw a UFO while he was in Hawaii. Took a picture of it and everything, and the picture literally just looks like you might have a little cracked spot on your camera lens. It was taken with like a potato quality camera. But, I mean, so I know when people are trying to get famous for these fraudulent claims, they are usually out actively seeking the public attention. See, the Suttons, they didn't. That's not what they were looking for.
It wasn't. No.
They had reporters coming to them because you got to understand this was a police report. This was the police had reported on this, and of course, I guess that's where reporters, between that and just people talking, heard about it and approached the family wanting to talk to them. And at first, from what I've read, they weren't very, very open to talking about it.
So this is all documented.
Oh, all of it. And it's actually, the Wikipedia says that it's one of the best documented cases of an extraterrestrial encounter.
That's tremendous.
And it's got so many witnesses.
That's crazy. Because at first it kind of reminded me of a story we covered a few weeks ago about the Egyptian-looking god monster that was hounding the farmer, you remember? But that one, there was no documentation. So this has documentation. It's well reported. Wow.
So you're talking about the Anubis-type monster, right? No, that was all just a personal account. No, there's police reports on this. Police have investigated. There's been press coverage over it. And, I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know that it was extraterrestrials, but I think something happened to them. I don't think that it was just a boring night and they decided, hey, it'd be fun. Let's shoot up the house. Even though we got all these kids we could accidentally hit, let's shoot up the house and then go tell the police about it and then try to never talk about it again. Like, people don't do that.
There are a few explanations, man. It could have been the government experimenting with like weaponized hallucinogens like hey, let's, put this in the water supply for this local, family and see what they do to each other,
Yeah.
There are a few explanations, but I definitely don't think, from what you're telling me, it doesn't sound like they were faking it. That's
well,
for sure.
and of course, now on the Wikipedia page, it shows you, man, it's so many conflicting reports. And if I would have saw this beforehand, I definitely would have included it. So I apologize for not having researched it to that extent. But, after reading but now Wikipedia says that there may have been some evidence that eyewitnesses may have been intoxicated. However, the police themselves said that they did not seem intoxicated. And I don't know about you, but I've been intoxicated a few times in my life, and while I may act silly and do stupid stuff, I don't imagine seeing things that I didn't see.
Dude, I've never been on anything that made me hallucinate strange alien-looking creatures.
And some people say
I
that
find something that would do that. But.
Some people say that what it was they were drunk, and then they saw the great horned owl. I hate to tell you, man, but if that many people, I surely hope the kids weren't drunk.
Yeah.
And they were witnesses to there was a face in their window, which freaked them out. And they came running downstairs because the adults had put them upstairs and said, stay in your room, and then they were what they thought to be fending off. I mean, for all we know that these things didn't want to hurt them at all, but they felt threatened and used lethal force. And, so you got the cops saying they didn't at all seem to be impaired. And in fact, some reports that I have read said they weren't drinking at all that night. Now, I mean, they had a family friend over. They were having dinner and stuff like that. I mean, people drink doing things like that. But and that's what I always hate, man. Whenever there's a claim, if there's alcohol involved, it's just like, up out the window. Explanation, you were drunk. And I mean, you and I are both skeptics. We're both very got to see it to believe it people, but we try to keep, I think, an open mind to someone else's claims because I don't want to ever have an experience and I don't look, everybody just look at you like you're crazy and dismiss you, and nobody has an open enough mind to just listen to what you have to say. And, so I definitely think there could be a logical explanation out there, but I definitely give some credence to something happened.
Yeah, something definitely happened, man. And I don't think it was that family's doing. Oh, boy.
And again, great horned owls. I mean, unless the thought process is they saw like one great horned owl, and in their drunken state, they shot at it.
Went insane.
And then just imagine, because I don't imagine that you would shoot at a great horned owl and then that owl will be stalking you the rest of the night. Or a pack of great horned owls, which owls aren't pack animals. So, I mean, I don't think that would be a thing. So that would mean that they hallucinated. And it's like, man, I know alcohol makes people do, but that many people that intoxicated and they all saw the same thing and... Oh, it just, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just, to me, it's just that's just a cop-out, easy skeptic, way of saying, oh, I dismiss it instantly because they were drunk.
Yeah, if it was a matter of just an altered state of mind, it would have had to have been something being tested on these people by the government because we know in those days they were doing all kinds of experiments with LSD and things like this. I don't know why they would pick some random rural family. I mean, even the children, but the government has been known to do some pretty messed up stuff. So
yeah.
If it's the case, it was just their altered state of mind. I would say it would have to be something of that nature.
Oh yeah, they had to be like some natural gases coming up that would making them
like
trip
that,
balls or something. But I mean. When you trip, you don't typically see the same. It's like when two people dream the exact same thing. Like you don't, you know what I'm saying? Like scientifically, you don't dream the same things. You can't jump into someone else's head.
The only time I've heard of that happening is with people experiencing DMT trips as far as shared.
And that's why DMT is so fascinating to you because it does seem like they have some commonality and people are experiencing the exact same things. And
that's the only time I've ever heard of people seeing being somewhat lucid and seeing the same thing. So.
I definitely think it was something. Now, was it horned owls? I don't think so because I just don't. As someone who's hunted my whole life, I just know that. Again, I said it earlier. You pull the trigger on a gun, and all wildlife says nope, and they just nope the hell up out of there. And it very well could be. It could be that they got extremely intoxicated, drinking some good old shine, and just got on next level drunk. Saw one horned owl, shot at it, it flew off, and then they just started running around the house, shooting up doors and windows. But I find that unlikely.
Yeah, me too. Especially like you said, the kids saw this as well. I mean,
the only logical thing that I can think of is that they were shooting at somebody. Maybe a family dispute broke out and they started shooting at each other, but then decided they didn't want to deal with the legal ramifications of firing guns at each other. So they just decided. To which then I don't know why you would go to the police. I mean, it's not like, I understand like, well, yeah, you got to explain the damage to the property, but I mean, you could just repair that and the police would never know. But that's the only thing I could think of if they made up the story would be, they were shooting at each other or at, I don't know, maybe they straight up murdered someone. That was how they covered I don't know. I don't know, man. I find this one interesting. A lot of them are easy to explain away, but this one to me is just very, like you said, it seems like if there are extraterrestrials, and those extraterrestrials did land in the gully near that house, as I was reading earlier, that perhaps you don't master space travel by being stupid. So clearly the extraterrestrials, and I've always thought that, like, if extraterrestrials, unless they're bulletproof or immune to harm from us, I mean, extraterrestrials, you don't master space travel and possibly time manipulation by being stupid. So clearly you would know when going to a planet there's a chance that there is danger, and you wouldn't just straight up approach the natives, even if they did seem somewhat sophisticated, because you're aliens. You get them big alien brains. You're smart enough to know that harm could befall you. So it makes perfect sense that if extraterrestrials landed and we're like, hey, let's check the area out. Well, don't go out there, Marvin. Hold on. Let's send the androids out. Because they said that the bullets just didn't seem to affect them. And an android might not be affected by bullets.
Yeah, a lot of UFO researchers believe that all these accounts of alien visitors, man, none of them are biological beings. They're just basically drones. Because,
I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, space travel takes so long, you really have no option but to send these avatars. So I don't know, man.
That would make perfect sense to travel the speed of light and go as fast as you would, or beyond, to go as fast as you need to travel the universe is more than most biological beings could handle. I mean, some have made claims that the aliens have some kind of like gel substance that helps absorb I don't know. I'm not really much of a physicist, but that would make perfect sense. Like create, artificial life that you control, I guess, that can withstand the pressures and just remotely control them.
Yeah.
Hell of signal, though.
That's a working theory out there. I still like the idea that they're like us, to really say they've been somewhere, they have to set foot on the ground. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But
I mean, once you've got to that, but that's for us, that's more of a prideful thing. Whereas with them, I mean, they've conquered, essentially they've mastered space travel. So that's not probably, again, they're not really worried about the pride of stepping foot. They've discovered and they've explored, just like we've sent the Mars rover to Mars. We've explored Mars a little bit, but we haven't been able to step foot there yet. And it might be just like the rover. They don't know that they can step foot on the planet. Maybe the oxygen levels are too high. Maybe they're too low. Maybe there's something missing that these creatures need, Maybe there's dangerous life that when you try to approach and make contact, starts slinging 12-gauge buckshot at your ass. Ooh. But I don't know, man. What are your thoughts with this story? I mean, like as far as, in truth, I know we try to keep an open mind, but realistically, if I was to be like, JP, so what do you think based on and there's so much more to it. Actually, let me give a shout out real quick. Go to YouTube if you're interested to hear more about this story in a much more dramatic and much better presented retelling of this story. Go find the channel Bedtime Stories, and this story is labeled The Kentucky Goblins. I was listening to it on the way to work this morning, and man, and the narrator almost sounds like Jon Snow.
Huh.
But I love the channel. Like, the dude does a great job narrating. They cover some really interesting stuff. So go check out Bedtime Stories, where you can get like the full 21-minute version of this story being told.
Yeah, I say Kentucky Goblins, man. That'd be a great Southern rock band.
Kentucky Goblins.
Yep.
Sweet home Kentucky. But so, all right. So based on the little bit of information that I've given you, what do you think?
It's tough, man. It definitely sounds like something not of this world. I mean, I think a lot of accounts of UFOs sometime are like experimental reverse engineered government projects, but this doesn't sound like the work of the U.S. government to me. It sounds like something kind of bled over, whether it came from another planet or another dimension.
I was just going to ask, did you think that there could be some extra dimensional?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more inclined to believe things are bleeding over from other planes of existence more so than other planets these days. Just kind of, things I've gotten more interested in. I'm not counting out that it could have been interplanetary, but yeah, I definitely think that things are traveling through using methods that we know not of to visit our realm of reality, whether it be in a vessel, whether it be almost telepathically, through substances like DMT, communicating us through the pineal gland. I don't know, man.
Isn't it interesting, though, that most people say that, or most encounters with extraterrestrials report the extraterrestrials themselves being telepathic?
Yeah, that is interesting.
They no longer need to speak or vocalize. They can, pass thoughts from brain to brain.
Yeah.
And I think you and I are much the same way, that we both think a lot of extraterrestrial encounters are a crock of BS, that someone just wanted attention. And that's the thing. If you're just joining this channel, know that we love to discuss this stuff, but neither of us are in the camp of being super gullible to believe all of this. We find everyday life is a little boring. So sometimes it is fun to discuss the more supernatural or conspiracy type elements of existence. But, so we're not the kind of people that get told a story and just instantly go, it's true. It's true. Black-eyed children, they're real. Yeah. The person experienced it. Why would they lie? I think we both are pretty skeptical on a lot. I mean, one of our favorite things to do is watch, and then we don't do this in a douchey way, and we don't do it on YouTube, so we don't say this trying to be snarky. It's just fun for us. We like to watch supposed ghosts caught on camera videos, and if we can, just between JP and I, we'll kind of pick them apart and theorized how someone could fake that. It's just a fun little brain exercise. It's kind of like doing a puzzle.
Yeah, and with those videos, man, like the ghost hunter stuff, it's a lot like porno for me. I want to see like amateurs reacting to this stuff. I don't want to see someone who's making a channel to try to get famous and make money finding ghosts. I want to see just normal people who happen to have a camera and stumble upon a ghost. I find them more credible.
Well, and a good point that you've made talking about ghosts is, why is it that ghost hunters, like, you're trying to make money in a career or a hobby, whether you're getting paid for it or not, but you call yourself a ghost hunter, a paranormal investigator. And I'm sure someone would be like, well, you go. No, I don't call myself a paranormal investigator. So if something was to just scare the crap out of me and I turned around and ran away, I don't call myself a paranormal investigator. Right. So, but you go into a home or a building or something and you have signs of paranormal and then you run away. I don't get it. That's like mining for gold, and then you see gold and you're just like, oh, well, there's gold. Damn it, let's get out of here. I'm scared of gold. Like, I get that it's scary, but this is what you do. Like, it makes you less credible when you get just enough to throw it on the internet and get millions of views for ghosts caught on camera. That, when you run away, I mean, if you're a ghost hunter, man, somebody just nut up and stay there, and actually catch the ghosts on camera.
Yeah.
If you die, that sucks, but I guess, hey, there's the footage. You died for a reason.
Yeah.
I know that got really morbid really quick, but anyways, the point is that both of us are very skeptical on things like this. And I don't know, man. I definitely think, families don't typically shoot holes all up in their house for no reason.
No, especially with like kids in the house and stuff, man. It definitely doesn't add up.
And then you don't go out seeking money for this either. I mean, it's very well known in that area. I mean, it's a very well known thing, and people talk, and it's, but apparently from what I was hearing on Bedtime Stories channel, these people didn't really go out seeking fame and made little to no money off of this and didn't really want to talk about it.
And anytime I've been in a situation where bullets get to flying, nobody has run into the police. You know what I'm saying?
No, not typically. Not typically, man. Not if you're the ones doing the trigger pulling.
Nope. So I don't know, dude. This is one we're going to have to chalk up to, who knows?
To the unknown.
Yeah.
I mean,
file it away with the X-Files.
Yeah, man. This is just one of those that just I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comments below. There's probably a pretty good chance you've heard this story before, so we would love to know, especially if you've heard it a while back and you've had time to think on it, what you think it could be, because that is what this channel is here for. We're not here to be the authorities on anything. We're here to just discuss and then continue the discussion in the comments section. And I would love to hear some theories on this. Even if you think it was 100% the great horned owls and a bunch of drunk hillbillies that shot up their house. I mean, that's cool. If that's what you think it is, please share it in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And again, if we get enough, because actually there was a part 2. Bedtime stories, they discussed the incident in part 1. And I didn't get all the way through it. I'm going to listen to it on the way home. But there's a part 2 where as recent as 2012, I think, a similar incident happened.
So we might have to revisit this next Wednesday.
We might be having our own part 2, but I'll listen to it and see if it seems to be legit. But yeah, man, I think something happened, man. I don't know that I know that it was extraterrestrial, extra dimensional. I don't know if it was drugs in the water supply, but I think something happened. And it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know. The metallic sounds are what are really bizarre, too.
There's a lot of really weird circumstances.
Like they would shoot, hear a metallic sound, and the creature would just disappear into the woods. Yeah. Seemingly unaffected by the bullet. Because if you've ever been hunting and you shoot an animal, even when they run away, it's pretty clear that they're wounded. I mean, if you shoot a deer and it goes running away, it does not typically, and sometimes they just, adrenaline kicks in, them suckers go, fine. But the deer I've shot, the times I've been hunting, a lot of times if you shoot an animal and it doesn't drop immediately, it runs wounded. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure somebody would be like, "Oh, well, if it ran away, how would you know it was affected by the bullets or not?" But I mean, usually when you hit something, you can tell as it's running away it's been hit or wounded. So, I don't know. I find it very fascinating, and I can't wait to see what people think in the comments below. Please join in the conversation, and also consider checking out our Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you get at least 8 extra podcasts per month. A lot of times you get even more than that. We've been doing surprise Patreon casts because we know everybody's a little bored right now, so we want to be able to do our part to give you something to keep you entertained, and also as a way to say thank you. Of course, $1 a month gets you extra podcasts. If you want to throw $5, that's even cooler. If you want to throw $10, hot damn. You want to throw 20, hot diggity damn. But definitely check it out. We've got a lot more just kind of free-flowing podcasts where we talk about what we're into, what's going on in life, and sometimes it goes to the paranormal, sometimes it goes into debauchery, sometimes it goes into just conversation about life and I don't want to say philosophy, but just
you never know what might come up.
It just goes to everything. So feel free to check out our Patreon. If nothing else, give us a like and a subscribe.
There you go.
And we'll see you again tomorrow, patrons, for a Patreon exclusive podcast. You, the listener, if you're not a patron, we'll see, if nothing else, by Monday for another Walking Dead What If session. And we've got some Walking Dead what ifs in the comments from last time to discuss.
Oh, man, can't wait.
So, yeah, we'll definitely be seeing you soon. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead.
Love you, mean it.